Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mysidian Legend Canadian FFTCG podcast featuring me, Alex Scott, and David. Say hello, David.
Hello, friends. Welcome back.
So this week, David and I actually went to locals, which is a long time coming.
Yeah, believe it or not, we both actually made it. Wow. A podcast about making locals, and we actually made locals.
Exactly. And I actually came pretty late, but they waited for me because we had a smaller group. Only 6 of us this week as we head into the holiday season. So we're going to go over some actual deck lists and what we played and how it all went. But first, we're going to talk about our awesome deal at Cards Vivi release. So if you're going to buy singles, starter decks, pre-release, like all that stuff, you can use the promo code PORUMPALUM10 for your purchase. That's PORUMPALUM10, and when you do that, it shows that you support the Mysidia post, and you also get a nice discount on your order. Pretty sweet. What do you think?
Yeah, I just ordered from there, and my package came in a week, so no complaints by me.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so we play FFTCG at Magic Stronghold in Vancouver, Canada, and it's a pretty good store. We're usually getting anywhere from like 6 to 12 people, depending on the week. This is right after a release, so we usually see an uptick in players, but we're also in the holiday season, so it's a little bit harder to get people out as well. But that being said, we both made some new decks to try and solve this Opus 10 meta, and we're going to get into those right now. So, David, what were you playing this week?
Well, I'll let you guess.
Okay, let's see. Your favorite Final Fantasy is 4. You
Right.
love Zeromus, so you're playing an aggro Opus 2 Zeromus deck.
Basically, just a 4 aggro deck with a Lunarian tribal.
Yeah, it was weird because you were running Ursula, but you didn't have a single copy of Yang in your deck.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
Not worth the value.
No, there's no. It's too much to assemble. You know.
Yeah,
Why
no
risk,
plays to be made there.
Why risk it? Okay, no, but you were playing FF9, of course. And was this Fire Water FF9 or was it Mono Water with the Splash of Fire FF9? What were you doing?
No, it was pretty 50-50 Fire Water FF9. In fact, 27 to 22 with the one light card being Light Zidane. Pretty staple for a Final Fantasy IX deck. You got your VVs, 2 cost Zidane with trying to give him haste on turn 1. A couple of interesting choices that I like to play around with because I get, funny enough, with my decks I get bored really quickly, so I like to switch things around, and I like to do things that make people think. If I can just make people think, I'm really proud of myself. So I'm running one of the 3CP Steiner. I think he's a great Phoenix target and has a lot of fun synergies with the deck when you're bringing in a bunch of FF9 characters because he just activates every single time. 1 Ignacio, 2 the Legend Ash, and 2 Gilgamesh because that's just so much fun. Of course, running fairies because that's what I do. 5 Phoenixes, 3 of the 7, 2 of the 4. And then pretty standard backups as well. Try to get as many FF9 backups as possible.
So your version of getting bored of a deck is to build a different version of that same deck, a different version of FF9. Meanwhile, I'm like,
exactly.
Oh man, I'm bored of playing Earth Ice. I'm gonna switch up to Lightning Wind, or now I'm gonna play Mono Water, or now I'm gonna play a different deck. So.
Yeah, my idea of getting bored is to scrap it and then do something stupid like play the 2 cost Vivi from the starter deck. That's what I do.
So, besides just wanting to switch it up, do you think this was more competitive than your Mono Water FF9, or do you think just like you just wanted to just try something new?
This is kind of just a return to roots with the new set and all. So, I played with the Mono Water. It was fun for a bit. But I don't think it didn't really have the firepower to set it over the edge that other decks have. So when it was ahead and it could win. But when it fell behind, there was next to no way I could come back. So
Okay.
this just kind of gives it that extra firepower.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll take a quick look at what I was playing. So early in my testing, I've been building a lightning wind deck that is pretty fast, and I built it because I pulled 3 Sid FFBEs. So the idea is that I was just going to do something that worked with him, and I worked really hard on that list, and I put a lot of ping synergy into it, but we'll talk about why that may or may not have worked in a little while here. But basically, the deck has your classic wind lightning staples like your Onion Knight and Rigdia, Alcid, things like Adele and Alua. We have 3 CP Zidane, 3 CP Y'shtola, just good wind cards. And then Sid, of course. The new Dash is pretty good. I had a Citra in there, and a Barbaricia and a Zool to bring back the new monster, Kanakamoy. I also had a 6 CP Vaughn, so just like that's 26 forwards, and then 6 summons, 2 monsters, and 16 backups. The summons, I'm obviously running 3 Chaos Walker of the Wheel, so if you have Chaos Walker of the Wheel and you have Sid out, you cast it, they play a forward, Sid's going to deal 9,000 damage to that forward because they played it without paying its CP cost, so that's pretty neat. I also had 1 CP Ramu, so that's an EX burst that says choose 1 damaged forward, deal it 7k. So I figured, 1 CP, that you can play that easily, and then they play something and Sid deals 2k to it with his auto ability, and then you would just be able to ping it for 9k total, but that didn't come up nearly as much as I wanted to. I also had a Bahamut Zero in there for finishing off games, and then the backup line was pretty stable backup line, trying to get backups out really quickly so I could stop thinking about them and start thinking about just throwing up my forwards onto the board. So for the lightning side of things, I used 1 Louis Swa to search out Alphino, so just so that I had a little bit of ping with Alphino, but then I had backup search. I had 3 Opus 2 Black Mages to reduce power, Gramus and Sid Clan as searchers. For the win side of things, I have Norstalin to be able to search Illyria, Charlotta, and Alhanalem. Again, that accesses a ping combo, but a lot of backup searching. And then to round everything out, I have the 2 CP Pinello, the new one, damage 3. You can deal 1k to all forwards, so that's really huge, or all your opponent's forwards. That's really huge for being able to activate some of your damaged forwards abilities, and it doesn't wreck your curve by playing like a 3 CP Dancer. Instead, you just play a 2 CP Pinello. So I played this deck a bunch at first, and it was just cruising, and even against Minwoo it was fine, and then we'll just have to get into how the matches went for you to find out the rest.
As you can tell, it went really well. By the way, he's eluding.
Yeah, so David, do you have any comments on the deck, having played against the initial version in testing?
I mean, I said it on the podcast. I really like that deck. It made me go out and order more Sid Brave Exviuses because I just want to play with that card. I just think that you hit a bad week and you had a few tough matchups and you're really depressed about it. But I think with some tuning and stuff, it'll end up being a really good deck.
Yeah, I think I do think I'm a little greedy in some of my choices, and we'll get into that at the end of the podcast about some things that I'm going to be able to change. But overall, I had a really long day, so after this locals night, I was choked. I was having a tough time, but again, we will get into that. So one thing I want to mention about Sid Brave Exvius is that I think he's going to be better than some people thought, because there was generally a polarizing reaction when he was spoiled. There was one side that was saying he was insane, just crazy good, and there was a side that was saying, oh, you're overrating him, he's not that good, he's niche, he's not going to fit in decks. But the amount of cheating in forwards that's going on right now, he's always going to be relevant with your Rampier decks. if you're playing a Rain for free with anything with like Gilgamesh. If you're playing against water, it's going to work on Layla Viking. It's going to work on Lena's. Like, there's just a ton of different applications that make this guy very relevant. So.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can keep him alive for a Phoenix target somehow, then he kills whatever the Phoenix is bringing in. So that's
another very, very relevant thing that he does. Okay, so let's get into how our actual matches went. So, David, why don't you start with your night?
all right. So game one, played against Mono Wind, one which I thought was going to be a tough matchup, but I ended up winning 7-0. Started out kind of rough. I turned one Ignacio'd, ditched 3, then ditched another to give him haste with Sage, but that honestly wasn't too bad because it ended up snowballing. And every time he played like a smaller forward, like he played a Searcher Balthier, just removed him with Black Waltz and just kept Ignacio swinging and gaining that value. Got down Gilgamesh, and he just couldn't keep up because I just kept swinging with Gilgamesh, bringing back Zidane, which they kind of acted like a lightning rod because then all of his removal and all of his efforts were to take him down so that he didn't just snowball himself and then have him drawing an extra 3 cards every turn. So that actually worked out really, really well that he just kept dealing with 2 CP4 that I just kept bringing back. I was kind of lucky. I didn't end up getting 5 water characters down at a time. I seemed a lot more fire than usual. So Gilgamesh was vulnerable to Diabolus, but he only drew 1, and that was pretty late in the game. So I kept him on the back foot, applied pressure. And then winning turn, I ended up playing 4 CP Titus that we just got as a pre-release. Bounced his Y'shtola, bounced my Sage, ditch 1, give him haste, and then just swung out for game. So
that is a very neat application that I hadn't thought of for that card. Not the bouncing Y'shtola, that's awesome. Just that in your specific deck, bouncing a Sage back to your hand is actually very relevant.
Oh, for sure. That card is actually, everyone who I've played it against has been like, wow, why do you have that card? And then they see that I'll bounce either their forward in a Sage, or I'll bounce Vivi in a Black Waltz, or there's a few applications that people don't think of, and then I pull it off and takes them by surprise, which is kind of my niche.
All right, so how about your second match?
Second match was exactly the opposite. Played against Mono Water, and I lost 7-0. Yeah. I drew pretty crappy, honestly, to start the game. Mulliganed, turn 1, Zidane, tried to give him haste with Belize instead of Sage because I didn't have one in my hand, and that just walked into a Famfrit. And I just kept struggling to draw backups, whereas he continued to ramp up as Mono Water is wont to do, so he would get down the Yuna, the Scholar, and then that would lead into a Waka and a Brawn. And I was just drawing, all the backups I was drawing was like Black Waltz and Sage, and drawing like VVs and stuff that are just like, well, I don't want this on the field for absolutely 0 value. So I was hoping for a better draw, but once he ended up getting the Gilgamesh, Porum, Famfrit loop down, and it was all Ogre at that point.
Yeah, I played against that deck as well, and it was really tough. Did you end up having to play against Folka that much?
Yeah, he won out on Folka play. He bounced 3 forwards in 1 turn, so he just pop, and that did it for me.
Yeah, we're talking about Julian, of course, who is our resident Mono Lightning player playing Mono Water for some reason. I mean, how dare he?
Yeah, the fact that he hated on me for weeks for playing Layla Viking, that I took it out of all my decks, just did not draw the ire of his criticism. And then, oh, look, he's playing Layla Viking this week, so.
Okay.
Screw you, Julian.
Now, can you tell us about your third match?
No, I left early.
Okay, so you totally skipped out. Do you have any idea of how that might make other players feel when you just leave?
Um, well, usually I'm in the top half, so they should be happy because then it opens up a spot for store credit.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? It can make some people pretty sad when you leave because people like you, you know?
I think you're the only one that likes me. I think you're the only one that gets sad.
Also,
It's usually it's usually because that when you'll end up losing to somebody you don't want to, and it'll put you in a bad mood.
if
So you
I,
need me to even you out.
if if you ever leave and I get a buy because of it, you're off the podcast.
No, that's fair.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna talk about my week next, and I played all three matches like a champ, and the first one was against an Une deck, and this was a pretty interesting match. It went very, very tight to the end, and it started off very slowly, which definitely favored the Une player because I was able to play a couple of backups and a couple of forwards, but then I was drawing copies of those backups and forwards in my hand, and I kind of got stuck for a while, whereas the Une deck has a ton of removal, but also just really needs the extra time to play a 6 CP backup and get fully set up. So by the time the game really picked up, my opponent had 5 backups down, including Une, and then it was just a matter of me trying to force lethal before he could set up all his different combos. And there was multiple turns where I was just kind of squeaked out of lethal by different things like, Citra into Glacia, play to cast the Glacia, bring back or kind of flicker the Citra, bring it all back again, and dull freeze things. Or like Big Phoenix plays the same thing. You can go 7 CP Phoenix, brings back Citra, and then you can like flicker a forward and then like do it all again. So it eventually came down to a final turn where my opponent forgot to use their backup Luna Freya to flicker a Squall legend from Opus 10, and that wouldn't have had them win necessarily, but it would have been ultra tight. We were both about to deck out. I had him on 6 damage, and I was able to push through the next turn, but it would have been ultra tight at that point to see who would have won.
Yeah, the Duna deck had some real good combos. This is coming from a former Magic the Gathering player who likes to play solitaire with himself, so you definitely saw that a lot, but yeah, he wasn't doing his best, and that misplay really cost him.
Yeah, exactly. Although I'd like to think that on most draws of my deck, I would have run over that deck earlier before he was set up, but I really just had him like he got to 100% set up without much pressure, and then I was starting to play cards, so that made a really big difference. Okay, second round I played against Ice Lightning, and it didn't last very long. My opponent got down his Snow backup and one other backup, I believe a Wind backup, and then just started playing down aggressive forwards like Genesis and kind of going into top deck mode where whatever you're drawing, you're playing. Unfortunately, it was all gas, things like Renoa, 1 CP Zalira, so he was clearing my board and I couldn't really put up blockers because of snow, so I couldn't, at that point it was just a damage race, so we were both dealing damage to each other, but he got off first, so he was always going to hit me down to 7 damage first.
Yeah, especially Lightning too. You can't it's tough to out aggro that with your the colors you were playing.
Well, I am playing an aggro deck, so you think that I would be able to match that?
Yeah, but you're not playing a haste aggro, really. Like, how much haste do you have? Just Adele and Alua? If I remember your deck list.
Yeah, that would be the 2 right now.
Yeah, and if I know the guy you were playing, which I do, he's the kind of guy to just kind of throw up his hand onto the board and swing until he wins.
Yeah, and it was an effective strategy. It worked, and I was 1-1. So I went into my third match against the mono water player that David had played against, and this one was also very quick. He played out a Folka very quickly and started building up his backups, and there was a moment where I was kind of pushing some damage, and I foolishly party attacked, which was a strategy that my deck commonly uses because I have weak forwards, but I don't need to worry about them trading into one of my forwards, because if I party attack and I'm just pushing through one damage and I start to get closer and closer to victory, then at any turn I can kind of burst and Bahamut Zero, or use other cards like my Chaos Walker and Sid FFPE to close out games really, really quickly. So as long as I'm pushing damage, I'm good. So I often do party attack, but in this case, I party attacked into the Folka. He discarded a summon to bounce one of the forwards back to my hand, and then just killed the other one. And at this point, I was in a lot of trouble. He also got a Minwu down in one of the first two turns. So all of that ping damage stuff, the Pinello, the Sid, I was drawing a lot of stuff. Like I had an L Sid that I could never play. I had two Onion Knights, a Rigdia. I had just all of the cards. I had a Sakura in my hand. Like at the end, I told him I'm gonna scoop, and he's like, "Oh, how come?" And I'm like, "All of the cards in my hand right now say damaged forward as part of their text, so this just isn't gonna work." So I got shut down hard by Minwu. In that game, I also did see my outs to Minwu, like Black Mage, Kanakamoi, that kind of the power reduction. All of that was in the damage zone and in the break zone. So maybe I should have held on to the Kanakamois, but in the early turns I figured, well, I'm going to pitch it and then I can Azul or Citra it back later on. But sadly, I that whole like Minwu, and then also just Folka is pretty much impossible to target because you're running a real risk that they don't have a summon if you try to target her. So because of that, it was just very difficult for my deck specifically to work around that.
Yeah, Focus kind of a tough one with your deck because it's all just target one, especially with the Minwu in the back. You're so combo oriented with your damage that I think moving forward you have a better idea of how to combat that. But just kind of it was a tough matchup for you.
Yeah. So that being said, I quickly vacated the store to go get dinner because I hadn't eaten yet and was very hangry. And I went home, thinking and messaging David, this deck is done. I'm gonna take it apart. I was very, very dramatic. And the next day, I started thinking about it again. Started thinking about my issues, and I've made a different version of the deck that I think combats a lot of the issues I had and focuses it a little more. I think I was trying to do too much, but we're going to have to get into that next when we talk about how we would change our deck lists. So we're going to start with David.
So I've been reflecting back on locals the past few days, and I'm trying not to get too low on the 7-0 loss, and I'm trying not to get too high on the 7-0 win. But it also makes it really tough to try and judge where to go from here. One thing I kind of want to polish out my backups a little bit. I'm running one of Yasuo and one Ninja because I really like the not being blocked. So I really like to have that on my board, but do I really need to have a sticky backup? Like get Suyu down and take up another Final Fantasy IX character slot? Because honestly, if you can get the 4 FF9 backups, it's Vivi's online at all times. And honestly, summons I'm pretty solid with. Forwards I'm pretty solid with. It's just maybe tinkering with a few of the numbers. But my biggest My biggest consideration right now is dropping the four cost Terra for Citra. I'm wondering if I want to put Citra in this deck.
I think that that's probably pretty good. I mean, a 3 CP
Citra's a
7K.
pretty okay card.
Yeah, and it's funny because we were made all this big deal about how good Terra is, and Fire finally got this amazing card, and it is everything that we said it was. And then now just every element has access to like a little bit of a better version. So
Yeah, exactly. And then ditch a light card, and then you can't make it block. So then that's just Yitsui or Ninja on a forward. So
I was listening to. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was listening to the Returners RVA podcast, and they were talking about how this is one of those cards where the creators just kept typing. They're like, okay, well, it's a 3 CP 7K that brings back a summon. Let's give it more. Okay, it's the EX burst. Let's give it more. It has this action ability. It's not good enough. Let's make sure it's on curve. There's so many things with this card that I just really don't. I don't know why they gave it so much. It really, really would have been playable at 6K or non-EX burst or no action ability. All those versions would have been played as much as it is being played now. So
we want to make a good card.
Yeah. So I do like the Yotsuyu in your deck because it's just so easy to pay for. And then you can still go 3 water backups and 2 fire as your main way to play, because you want to get those water characters for Gilgamesh, but then your backup line can activate or use Yotsuyu's ability on its own. So I feel like that's a really good line to go for it. So that's what's so great about Yotsuyu is that it's a 1 fire and a doll for her ability. So I do like that inclusion.
Yeah, it's super easy to use. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'll go back to the drawing board, go back to untap, and see what I can figure out.
When I'm looking at fire backups, I actually always have such a hard time choosing. And I'm talking about specifically in Fire X decks, in Mono Fire. You have a lot of backups you can pick from, but I feel like in Fire X decks, there's not that many good fire backups.
Yeah, not really, because with my backups, the only thing I got is Sage, Ninja, Yotsuyu, and Black Waltz. And Sage is very niche to Zidane and Ignacio giving haste, or giving whoever haste, honestly. Then, yeah, not blocking, and then Black Waltz just an FF9, so it's all pretty niche.
I love those two. You know what I kind of like in your deck?
All 50 cards?
Yeah. Well, maybe even like an Illusionist. Because it's kind of like Ninja in that if they've attacked, they're not going to be able to block you next turn. So that possibly lets your Zidane get through. But you can also force them into attacks where maybe you've got some of your famous combat tricks ready to go. So that can be a neat one to try. And it's just like Ninja in that it has a easily payable ability. So.
It's not a terrible idea, and I totally didn't just look up and see what Illusionist does.
Yeah, so that it forces one of your opponent's forwards to attack that turn. Hopefully, leaving open time or space for Zidane to make his way through. How many fire cards do you run?
22.
22. So, and have you tried the starter ace as well?
I have. But I tried it before I got the Tidus being able to bounce it, because otherwise it just didn't do much once it sat there. But
I feel like in your deck, is it hard to pay the extra 3 fire to do 9k to something?
Yeah, I don't think I ever pulled it off once. Yeah,
that's fair. Okay, is there anything else about your deck that you want to go through before we move on to mine?
Leave a comment on what you think about 3 CP Steiner, because I really like it, but I really liked it with my mono water. But I haven't seen the same effect used in the fire water variant. Leave a comment if you have cool ideas. Like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button. Yeah.
That's the fun part about this podcast, is that we're not these like Crystal Cup Worlds winning players. We're players just like you, and we're going through these different decks. But as we learn stuff, and hopefully you guys can learn from us, but we can learn from you. So if you ever listen to this and you say, wow, like David needs to be running this card, he's a doofus, then you can comment that and make sure you say, David, you're a doofus, or get real man, or get a life, like whatever mean thing you want to put at the front, because it's YouTube, of course, right? So say the mean comment first, and then you can say your advice for David, and that'd be great.
Yeah, I take criticism really well, so like, get on me.
Yeah.
Please get personal. Attack my family if you want. As long as I know what cards to play.
If you're going to give me feedback, I'm actually very sensitive. So things like only, this is just a little tip. Don't worry about it. But, and then like the little like qualifiers before it, just so I don't get too hurt, Otherwise, I'm going to shut down the whole Mysidian post. Like the whole thing deleted. Well, the first negative comment I get, it's over. So, be careful with that, please.
Yeah, his nickname back at locals is the Daffodil.
Yeah.
Alex the Daffodil Scott.
That's actually really good. We should make that a thing. I'm into it.
The Yo Daffodil.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about my deck now. So this is like I said to David, this is supposed to be an aggro deck, but it had this weird identity where it's ping based, which is fine, but I think a little too greedy. I think there was some ping-based stuff that was a little too controlling. And an example of that was in a previous version, I used to run the 5 CP Orlando, which is a great card, but it's not an aggro card because you're spending a lot of CP on it. And you don't want to have that many cards in hand when you're playing aggro because you want them to all be on the field swinging at your opponent. So another example of these types of cards is Barbarecia, which I thought was just a shoo-in for me. It's something that deals with Minwu, and it can combo with a lot of different things, but it's also a bit expensive. So I was running it as a one-of, and I'm going to try running it, or cutting it from the deck. Azul, the 5 CP forward, was another greedy play that I really, really thought it was a fun application with Kanakamui, and I'm definitely going to try this out in other Lightning decks, but it wasn't the right card for this deck. So I ended up cutting an Azul and a Barbarecia and one Y'shtola from 2 down to 1, and I've added in an extra 3 CP Zidane because that's just a great card for any deck, especially aggro, picking stuff out of their hands and playing a forward. Can't really get much better than that. I've also added in an extra Citra, so I have 2 Citras now, and that's immediately made impact in some of the matches I've played. I've been able to use her second ability. I've been able to just more consistently bring back Chaos Walkers, Bahamut Zeros, Kanakamoys, and it definitely needed to be at a 2-of. And the final forward I added in is, just a little something I did for David here. I put in a Black Waltz 3.
Excellent choice.
Yeah.
More 9 cards. Only way to make your deck better.
Now, Black Waltz 3 is something we've seen in Lightning decks in the past to run with Al Cid, and I tested out against a Minwu deck with this new version, and Black Waltz 3 made a huge difference because when it enters the field, something loses 2,000 power, and when it exits the field, it does the same thing. I would run this just for that first ETB because it's perfect. It's just what I need. It helps with things like Gilgamesh 11. It helps with other things that now I can totally power reduce and ping for 6k with El Cid, or I can combo that with other things in the deck like Kanakamui or the different summons I've put in now. So I'm pretty psyched with that 9 card. Thank you, David.
Hey, what I'm here for. It's the only, they're the only cards I really know. I'm not looking to win Crystal Cups or go to Worlds. I just want to be the best FF9 player.
Yeah. Well, we did have an FF9 player go to Worlds, so you got to beat him now. We got to have you guys have a match online or something.
Yeah, did he play an FF9 deck at Worlds? Brought disgrace onto our community.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We don't actually know what he played at Worlds, do we?
I have no idea.
Okay, so summons, I cut the 1 CP Ramus that were too greedy, and I put in 2 of the 4 CP EX Burst Ramu, choose 1 forward, it loses 7,000 power until the end of the turn. And this is exactly what I need in this deck. This is a huge boost. So now all of a sudden I'm removing a lot of different forwards. I have just 2 extra pieces of removal that just straight up weren't in the deck before. But then again, this can combo with things like Rigdia. This can combo with Desh, with Al-Cid, with Cid FFBE, and it's just a good EX burst as well to hit. So it's all around just a much stronger card than the 1 CP Ramu. So that was a huge change for me. Okay, backup line. I've kept the whole Stalin FFCC searching out, and I think it's a really good package. I really like Charlotta in this deck. It allows me to extend to these big plays late in the game with some extra CP. So what the change is that I made is I cut the Louis Soir Alphino package. Alphino's ability is really strong, but ultimately it's too controlling for this deck, and I want faster cards. So I cut the Louis Soir and I put in a Death Gaze Final Fantasy IX monster as an extra piece of removal. The one cool thing about Death Gaze is that if they remove Death Gaze and Cid FF Brave Exvius is on the field, he's just going to kill whatever comes back into the field. So that helps out a little bit, but it's also just cheap, efficient removal to help me crush my opponents quickly. Because again, I'm trying to focus my identity on this deck as an aggro deck and not as a controlling deck. So that was a really good inclusion. And then to replace the 2 Alphinos, I put 2 Opus 1 Red Mages. So like David was saying, I didn't have a lot of haste, but now I've got a backup that gives any forward haste until the end of turn, and it's not very hard to use its ability. And this came up in 2 matches for me where I was able to actually haste out a forward late to hit some damage and then later win the game. Oh, sorry.
Reflecting on the things that you've said, and I love that you're putting more 9 cards in, because that's gonna send you to Worlds, honestly. But don't think you're gonna top me as the number 1 9 player. When you said you were playing Black Waltz, I don't know why, but my mind instantly thought that you were playing the 4 CP EX Burst. What do you think about that one?
I looked at that one, and it's too expensive. The big thing,
expensive.
The big thing about this Black Waltz is that it's playable off Al-Cid. And
Right.
it's also playable off Vaughn. This deck also likes to get to 3 backups, and if it gets to 5 naturally, that's fine. But I just want to play off 3 backups, so 3 cost cards are really good. And I usually end up getting to 5 backups just from playing like Black Mages to combo into things, or just playing out some backups later in the game. But really what I'd like to do with this deck is get to 3 and just start pounding my opponent.
That's kind of sexy.
Yeah, so okay. I mean, that other Black Waltz is very cool. It has good art. It has the cinematic art, so it's certainly interesting. But yeah, I think for this specific deck, if I was going to run that, I should probably run Barbarissia. Kind of same reason to cut both. Yeah. One thing I want to add in, I just don't know what to cut, is another 6 CP Vaughn. I'll tell you the one card I'm really hanging on to right now is Sakura, because it has so much potential, and specifically against that Une player at locals, playing a Sakura won me the game because it refilled my hand and helped me to keep going. But in other matchups, she's pretty bad, and against Minwoo, she's totally dead. So I'm having a hard time with her. I do want to keep testing her though.
How many are you running right now?
Just 1 Sakura and one 6 CP Vaughn. So if I cut her it would be for a second 6 CP Vaughn.
Right. I don't know. I think 1 and 1 are good numbers for now until we get a better sense as to what our local meta is going to be. Because I don't think Julian's going to be playing Mono Water much. I don't think anybody was really going to stick to that deck. I don't think it's going to make a huge comeback.
Yeah, well, Julian's not going to be playing much of anything when I finish with him.
Goodness. Look
Right?
out.
Were we recording? Was that recording? Yeah, I think Julian listens to this too.
Oh, good.
I'm coming for you. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to mention about our lists for this week?
Nothing yet. Do you want us to keep working on these, or should we switch it up and keep it fresh for next week?
Well, I'm gonna probably play something else anyway, because I do like to just keep changing it up. But I'm sure that our listeners don't mind you playing your FF9 one more time to figure it out.
Or week after week after week.
Yeah.
I'll
exactly.
try. I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it fresh.
Yeah,
as
keep
much as I
it.
can.
Yeah, you know what? People like it when you keep it fresh. Keep it light.
I'll go one on one off with the Firewater FF9.
Okay.
Feel like that's fair.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well we're gonna take off now. So I just want to thank all of you for listening to the Mysidian Legend, and don't forget to use that promo code PORUM10 for deals at Cards of Ivalice. Okay, so you can also read my articles at themysidiapost.com and follow me on YouTube and Facebook, and throw that like and sub like David was saying. And then we're also gonna thank FF Decks, because we always thank FF Decks. FF Decks. All right, David.
Yeah, FF Decks.
Well, I'm not going to swear. I'm a teacher, and this is a respectable podcast. So you know what? I'm not going to have any of that in here. Okay?
This is a gentleman's podcast where we
Yes.
threaten other local splitters.
I want my 2-year-old niece to be able to listen to this podcast. Okay?
Oh goodness. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So say goodbye, David.
Goodbye, friends.
Okay, and thank you so much for listening, Mysidians. We'll see you next time.